Hey everyone, it's T-Lore, and today I wanted to talk to you about materials that can be used on a CNC laser that are great for making small tokens or game pieces. And I've got a small selection here that I wanted to go through and tell you about the materials, about how much they cost, and what they'd be good for. So starting over here on this side, I've got just regular acrylic, and we have some solid acrylic, like this white piece here, and we have also like a solid green. These you can't see through at all. And then we have a solid red, and you'll notice as I pick it up that it gets brighter. That's because it's actually transparent, so you can see through it. Acrylic is great for being able to be transparent, and it's really easy to cut. So this cuts pretty quickly, and all of these have been engraved and then painted. So white, when you engrave it, turns white. So I came back and painted this with black, and I cover how I paint these in a previous video. This one also, it kind of, when you engrave it, it's a kind of a light white. You'll notice it on this piece here and this one, but when you paint it with white, it's even brighter. It stands out a lot better. There'll be some lighting conditions where you won't see these engravings very well. So I came back and painted both of these with white. You can also fill it with any other color that you want to, but acrylic is kind of my go-to for game pieces. And this costs anywhere from the clear, just a straight clear, is about $9 a sheet, which is 12 by 20, versus these are about $12 a sheet. And you can find it cheaper, you can get sales sometimes, but this is roughly what I pay for a sheet of acrylic. Now this one here in the middle, you'll notice it's a little bit different. So as I move it, you can see how it's catching the light a little bit differently. And if I flip it over, you can actually see that this side is perfectly smooth. So this is a textured acrylic that has one side that is uneven, and it gives it a nice feeling to it. So this is supposed to be a slime token, so by having this, it's almost like a wet, slimy kind of feeling that you can get out of it, and it makes a cool texture. So this is great for something that's like a water token or some kind of a liquid that you can cut out. I haven't been able to find a lot of colors of it, but this is one that was perfect for this application because it's supposed to be slimy and gross for just a little token, and you just get a whole pile of these and you can just immediately tell what it is. So this textured acrylic has a very limited application. However, you'll find clear textured acrylic at a place like a big box home improvement store because they use this on light fixtures. Now, not in the neon green color, but you can get clear, and then you can put some other color below it to have an effect such as water or a pool of liquid. So you could use that for larger game pieces. Or if you wanted to spray paint it blue, you could probably get some interesting results with that, though not nearly as good as actually just being entirely colored. Now this piece that's right here is a sparkle acrylic. So I'll pick this one up and you can see that it is just glittery. And so this is a clear acrylic that has glitter built into it, so you can almost see how it settles to one side. So they pour the acrylic, and then after it's set for a while, this clear acrylic has all this glitter in it, and it does settle a little bit, but when you're looking at this straight on, you can't really tell. Now you can also see that it is a little bit see-through because it's a random smattering of glitter. But when you're really just using this as a piece of gold or something else that needs a little bit of extra sparkle to it, you don't notice those fine details. I just thought it was interesting to highlight those, and this engraves really well just like the rest of these, although I wouldn't use it for high detail engraving. If you were to try and paint this, it can get very busy on larger pieces to try and see numbers or letters. I've done a few counters with this and then tried to come back and paint it, and you can't read it because of all the bright and dark spots from the glitter that's behind it. This tends to be a lot more expensive than the basic acrylic, and there's only a few glitter color options that you can get, but it's an interesting application if you ever find you need one. This is usually 2 or 3 times as expensive as the regular one. Now this textured acrylic it's in the same price range. It may be a couple of dollars more, but it is still cheaper than the glitter style. And then the last two pieces of acrylic that I have here are again just standard pieces of acrylic. This one is just engraved. It doesn't have any painting done to it. And you can pick it up and we will see here. So you can see it's engraved pretty well and it's so clear that it's actually focusing, the camera's actually focusing on the piece behind it. But that's the benefit to acrylic, is that it's nice and clear. Under certain lighting conditions, especially if it's dim, you're going to have a hard time seeing the engraving without it being painted, or in a situation where if you're doing something that's clear and on a white background or low contrast background, this becomes hard to see unless you paint it. And then finally, the clear acrylic that I have here is great for, you can do, like, this is a snowflake or any number of other pieces that are clear or ice, and this is much cheaper than just any color of acrylic. So I pay about $9 a sheet for this piece here, whereas these, like I said before, were about $12. So I do a lot of my acrylic prototyping in clear just because it's a little bit cheaper, and I'm able to keep a lot of sheets of it on hand because just about everything will use a piece of a clear acrylic. And then finally I have these two wooden pieces here. These are cut out of a project ready wood that I'm able to get. And so like this one is maple, so this is an actual hardwood. It's not a plywood. You can use plywood for tokens. It tends to be a little bit too low contrast for me. It's not very exciting, but I do use it on my larger pieces, especially when you can use it to make multiple pieces together. So this stuff is actually in the same price range as the acrylic, and it comes in a sheet that you can just put on the laser and go. So this has not had any sanding or prep work done to it, and this is just fresh off the machine. So this is maple, which gives you a nice white look to it. And when you engrave it, you get a nice dark brown. So this is great for high contrast sort of pieces, and it looks really good for a lot of game tokens. I also like to use cherry. So you'll notice that this one's actually a little bit shiny because I put a finish on ahead of time. So I used a water-based polyurethane and then did my engraving. So that allows it to just have a little bit of extra shine to it. But that does mean that all of these grooves don't have the finish in them. And again, you can see it's a pretty light wood, but it does have a little bit of a red hue to it. And especially when you put that finish on, it really brings out that red. So I thought it worked really well for engraving such as like a barrel or something that you want a little bit more of a wood feel and texture to it rather than just a plain piece like this one. And then finally, this is a little bit big for the camera, but I have this dual layer acrylic, which if you can see, it is essentially, it's a white plastic that has a very, very thin layer of black on top of it. My biggest problem with it is, if you can see all those spots there, it tends to pick up a lot of dirt, and it also can even just pick up the smoke from engraving it yourself. So I've stopped using that for most of my smaller pieces, especially because it's a lot more expensive. So it's about twice as expensive as the regular acrylics that I use. And it comes in a very limited selection of colors. So there's a huge amount of color you can get with these acrylics. I think there's like 6 or 7 that you can get with the dual layer plastic. So I just stick with these, come back and paint them. And if I want a bit more of a wood look, I go for project ready wood.